Welcome to a festive edition of the MECH Marathon. Now, whilst there isn't technically a Christmas theme, and no, the Winter Village sets or advent calendars don't count for some reason, I wanted to bring some Yuletide joy to the series. So I went back to my original idea of doing one mech per CMF series. I then searched through those series to find as many festive figures as I could, and I was able to come across 3 for this very video. The first of which being found all the way back in Series 8. It's the big man himself.
Oh my god!
This mech is going to be very different from all the ones I've built in the past because it's got a very unique design. Starting with the feet, I've gone for a black chunky boot, of course, with a nice white trim. Very difficult technique to get those parts in there. They're actually
Mudguards.
And then the legs are built up from there. The legs are already detailed, of course, because they're not going to be that important to this mech, but you can see on top, it's got a very interesting build-up there. That's because I'm not going to use the standard mech body part, and the reason for this is because Santa's a big fat man. That sounded meaner than it was supposed to. Jolly! He's a jolly fat man. Basically, the normal mech body didn't quite suit his stature, so I've gone for a brick-built base that's built out of different layers of curved slopes which get smaller as they go up, to represent his big coat. Obviously. With a white fur trim all around the bottom, and then of course his black belt, complete with a pearl gold buckle. Moving up again, you can see Santa within his mech, which I think is quite a funny look with his small head, along with a few more layers of his coat, including 2 exposed studs on the back. Stay tuned to find out what those are for. Anyway, get some arms on there and start to complete the top of his coat. Again, like the legs, the arms aren't that detailed currently because there's just not that much going on with much of his suit. And looking at this, I thought I should zhuzh it up a little bit, so as I wasn't able to get him his sleigh because that would be far too big, I took the next most reasonable option and made him a tree-powered jetpack. And if you're going to argue that this is not canonically accurate to Santa, I hope he gives you coal. Or Lego dots, I'm not sure which is worse. I gave him a little bit more detail by adding some Christmas wreaths onto his arms, and of course, what makes a Christmas tree without a star? And it also gives a nice new colour to put in there, so that goes on the back as well. It's at this point I realised I forgot to give him hands, so quickly threw them on, and then made it look like his jetpack was actually doing something by adding some snowflakes flying out the bottom. And there you have it, my Santa mech in its full glory. I'm really happy with it, except maybe the hands, they could be a little bit less skeletal. Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Now we jump forward 2 more series to number 11, where I would have loved to have done the gingerbread man. However, LEGO refuses to make the mech parts in neutral colours, so I have to settle on the elf. Now, elf shoes are quite weird little things, because they've got this weird curve at the front of them, which was initially quite difficult to think of how to design out of LEGO, but I ended up settling on some 1x2 round plates to kind of create that curve. Another important part of the elves are of course their short legs. I couldn't use a standard mech joint here because then it would be the same size as Santa, so I built my own with some modified plates and some Technic pins holding them together. I then had to add some little red stripes in just to make it a little bit more fancy, and get some jingle bells on those boots. Above it you can see a ring of green brackets. Now this is of course to create his skirt. I think it's a skirt, I don't know what else to call it. It's kind of like the bottom half of his t-shirt. It doesn't matter. Anyway, it looks a little bit like this when it's put together. It creates a really nice look for me. It does limit the legs mobility a little bit, but because I'm doing so many mechs, I want each of them to look as unique as possible, so I'm fine with it. But anyway, we need to get our body on next, and unlike the Santa mech, I will still be using the standard body part, and with the body on, you can see the outfits in there nicely. And on the actual front chest plate, I've decided to use a red 2x2 tile with a present print on it, which was actually one of the original accessories that came with the CMF. Now, that present actually gave me an idea for the rest of the mech, because it was just going to be quite boring with regular arms on, but I decided to give him big present shoulder pads, because why not? I put a 1x10 plate across his back to connect both sides on, and then built the back of a present with a bar through the middle so I could eventually attach the front, so it looks like just a normal present on each shoulder. This is quite a silly technique, but I'm really happy with how it came out, and I have a nice ball joint on the side of each one so it can fit the arms on, which was what I did next, along with adding a nice little belt of Christmas lights, which I thought was just another nice touch. This was nabbed directly out of the Star Wars holiday diorama, but I don't really care. I think it's just a really cool look and really gives some life to it and makes what could be quite a boring mech a lot more fun. Throw in some hands and a candy cane and a couple more jingle bells and it's done. That's the elf mech. Again, I feel like I say this after each one of these, but I'm really happy with it. I think this is so cool. I love the present shoulders, I love the belt, and I really like the skirt as well. I think it makes a really nice model. Of course, it's not like highly technical or anything like that, but yeah, super cool stuff. Let's get on to the last one of the video. Now we jump forward another 12 series, all the way to number 23, which had a whole variety of different Christmas characters, such as a reindeer, a nutcracker, a turkey, or just do an elf again. But eventually I landed on doing something a little bit frostier. Now, this mech had to be a little bit different, because, funny fact about snowmen, and unlike the minifigure, snowmen don't have legs, so I basically had to build a sphere to form the bottom of the mech, which was actually easier than I was expecting because I used an old tips and bricks post. Not using the legs actually ended up making this one of my shortest mechs yet, which isn't really an issue, but just something I found quite interesting, that the legs do actually add quite a lot of height. But you can see with these sides on now how it's basically constructed. Just different layers of plates with a Technic brick in the middle at the top, which will basically connect it to the next part of the mech. It actually held up to be a lot stronger than I was expecting, considering that it's hollow, but I put in a little bit of reinforcement with some headlight bricks and it seemed to do the job. And of course I had to put some black ground tiles in the front to represent little stones for his buttons. And that's the sphere taking shape. I'm quite happy with it. Not sure how I feel about the studs because there's no real way to tile it off. So I added on the body piece of course and another stone. Around the back I've got some axle pieces going out instead of just my normal ball joints. That's because I wasn't going for normal arms on this mech. The mech joints don't exist in brown as of currently, and of course I had to have stick arms, so I just took some old Technic bits out and made them out of that. So this actually uses 0 of my mech joints, which I think is a first for this series, of course besides the mini one. But with some hands, I think the arms look pretty alright, even if they are a little bit long. And you can see around the back I'm starting to represent the scarf as well, which of course is another necessary part to the snowman. I'm not entirely sure how happy I am with the scarf in the end. I think it's got the right look, it's just a little bit too tall. I tried to get the minifigure a bit taller up in there, but it just wasn't going to work. So it kind of covers his face a little bit, but I think I'm quite happy with this mech. Definitely the simplest out of the 3, even if it has that complicated technique in the bottom, but it's pretty good going.
So there we have it, 3 more mechs to add to my collection, which is slowly but surely growing. Hopefully by Christmas next year, I have got a formidable amass of these things, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. It's been a great year for these mechs, and hopefully next year will be just as great. I'll see you in the next one. Just to close out the year, I've done something a little bit special. I hope you enjoy, or at least take some entertainment out of it. This next track goes out to the viewers, and for the people whose ears have to suffer through these next 20 seconds of runtime. Leave while you still can.
We wish you a Mecky Christmas, we wish you a Mecky Mechmas, we wish you a Mecky Mech and a Mech. Good tidings we bring to you and your
Plate modified 2x6 by 2/3 bent.
We wish you a Mecky Mechmas and a Mech.